Hello and welcome to the January 2024 reading wrap-up. I decided this year that I'm going to start doing my reading summaries once a month instead of every quarter, partly because those videos tend to get a bit long. This year they may end up being shorter because, as I've mentioned in an earlier video, this year is going to be focused on getting through those 200 books that I managed to knock off in the last 2 years and start pooling all that information together, as that's going to be a huge undertaking. I have no doubt that my reading this year will be a bit lower than it has been in the last few, but it'll be worth it as all this information starts coming together and I hopefully start learning some new insights. But on to what did I read in January? Part of my goal was to finish the books that I had started in 2023 but hadn't quite finished. And if you've seen a few of my videos, you know this particular cube keeps changing. In there, I have the various books that I'm currently reading because I'm not one of those people who has one book on the go. I tend to have anywhere from 5 to 10. Let me know in the comments down below if you do the same, or are you someone who reads one book at a time before moving on to the next? The first book that I finished from my 2023 list was Kryon, The Recalibration of Humanity, 2013 and Beyond. Now, this work is by Lee Carroll, and he channels an entity or a being known as Kryon. Lee has been doing this for decades. I read the book shortly after I purchased it, and this was a reread. It was very interesting, and it was very timely when I picked it up because, again, it talks about what's going on in terms of the world and humanity. It's interesting reading it 10 years later because it gives you an idea of some of the things that he was predicting and talking about. Some of the things have started to happen, but what I really enjoyed about this book was the fact that it keeps pointing out changes are going to happen slowly. Humanity didn't get into this situation in a day, and it's certainly not going to end up fixing things in a day. So the important thing to remember with this book is the more that we have people shining their light and talking about the good things that are happening in this world, the more that that is going to grow and hopefully gain momentum and get other people on board. On the back of the book, it says, Kryon is a loving, angelic energy, and Lee Carroll is the original Kryon channel. Through more than 2 decades, the loving information from his partnership has sustained many and explained much about our changing times. This is the 13th Kryon book, and it represents some of the most profound and direct instructions yet on what is happening on the planet. The Kryon books, plus the 3 Indigo Children books, are published worldwide. There are now more than 150 individual Kryon book editions representing printing in 25 languages. The book you're holding is the culmination of 24 years of spiritual evolution and a remarkable spiritual lineage that has carried the Kryon team and a profound message of hope all over the earth. Lee Carroll continues to create magical energy through his Kryon meetings all over the planet. He's been invited and has channeled 7 times at the United Nations in New York City. And the Kryon work is now seen as some of the most consistent and long-lasting channeling in the esoteric world. This particular work covers different sessions of Kryon, both in the United States and in Canada. It was an enjoyable read. As the back says, it inspires hope. It brings some things into perspective. So if you're looking for an uplifting read and you're open to channeled works, then I definitely recommend checking Lee Carroll out. I'm not sure if you can find him in a public library. Sadly, sometimes these works aren't available through that source, but you can certainly check Goodreads to see what other people have said about this particular book. The next book that I finished from my 2023 list was The Little Spark. This is by Carrie Bloomston, 30 Ways to Ignite Your Creativity. I really enjoy the setup of her book. Each section has a title, so Spark 3 is Take a Class. She talks about the importance of finding what you enjoy, learning something new, and then at the end, she always has an activity that you could either do in this book or set up a separate journal. She has great ideas, different resources. She talks about her own experience. Spark 8, process, so identifying how things work best for you and figuring out your own process. And it's always important to do that. You may get ideas and clues from other people, but then make it your own, because we each have different ways of doing things, and it's important to honor what is going to work best for you, being able to fit it into your time schedule, tools, supplies that you enjoy using, that type of thing. I'll definitely be covering this and all the books that I'm mentioning in future videos, but this is just a quick overview. I enjoyed Spark number 11. You can see here, and it's called Jar of Markers. Now, if you've seen my little monkey, Tiki, I have to watch where I keep my markers and pens because she's a little thief. And you may have seen in my other video, I had pencil crayons and markers here, and I had to keep an eye because she was trying to make off with one of them. So I love this idea, and the example that she uses is keeping markers, pencil crayons around your home, whether it's on your table or a desk, different locations, having some paper handy. So if you want to just start doodling or filling in a picture, do some coloring. I love making notes. I have felt tip pens, so some of my notes are in different colors. I love smelly markers. So again, it's finding what works for you and being able to set those things up in different locations. Another suggestion that she has, and again, this is about making it your own. So for people like me who enjoy markers and that type of thing, that works. But she also has an example here of a bowl with yarn in it, not something I recommend for cat owners. In this case, this is another artist, and she leaves yarn around to give her inspiration and come up with different ideas and to do her projects. This was a very enjoyable read, again, timely, because January we have the clouds, all that type of thing. So it was good to read something that was light with a lot of fun and great ideas. Next, I finished Around the Moon by Jules Verne. I have one more book to finish from his box set, Around the World in 80 Days, and then I'll be doing a video on the 5 books that came in that. Around the Moon definitely wasn't like reading H.G. Wells' story about the first men in the moon. And I have to admit, if I have to pick between H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, I'm definitely Team H.G. Wells. They were both science fiction writers, both well known with amazing stories, but I found Verne tends to get a little too technical with numbers and things for me. When I'm reading this type of book, I just want to let my mind go, get immersed in the story, the characters, and what's happening. Maybe it's because I'm not a fan of math. So when I'm reading Verne, all these different numbers and technical things just tend to lose me. It doesn't mean that the stories aren't good. I enjoyed reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea for the first time last year. I'd seen the movie decades before, and I definitely enjoyed reading Jules Verne because he's a classic, one of the earliest science fiction writers. So I definitely recommend checking him out. The nice thing with Jules Verne or even H.G. Wells is you quite likely can find these authors at your public library. And again, you can always see what other people say on Goodreads. The next book I went to, which wasn't planned, and I've explained in my last live stream, I just can't do it to be read list. I have a massive list with something like over 100 books now. In other words, for me, a TBR list is titles that I want to check out and read, but I don't have a set time to read them. I picked up The Earth Path after finishing Around the Moon. I very much enjoy Starhawk. She was my introduction to the pagan world when I was taking a religious studies course in university. I've enjoyed her work. She's well known throughout the pagan community, and she is a very grounded, down to earth, no pun intended, author. She talks about permaculture, the importance of connecting with nature and the importance of considering the choices we make and what we're doing, particularly when it comes to whether it's our gardening, the environment at large, because everything is interconnected and the different impact of actions. But she's not someone who lectures people. If you're someone who is interested about all those connections between nature, it's a great read. Although she is a Wiccan, this book isn't about doing spells or that type of thing. It's very much a book about the environment, the connections between humans and nature, doing what you can in your own home, your own community, and being realistic. So as she says, although she has solar panels in her home, she doesn't expect everyone to go out and buy solar panels. Because she's a speaker around the world, she also goes on airplanes. In other words, she's realistic. She stresses the importance of being conscious about your choices. In other words, are you using cloth bags when you're going shopping, or do you just get plastic bags? If you get plastic bags, do you have another use for them at home? For example, myself as a cat owner, when I did get plastic bags at the store, those came home and became my litter bags. But it's been a number of years since I've done that because we have bins and cloth bags that we take to the store. That's one thing that I do. We have composters, but not everyone can compost. We now have a green bin program in my city, which I'm very excited about. And garbage collection has changed here from once every week to once every other week. They do, however, collect the green bin items every week along with recycling. In other words, the city is making more of a commitment to keep things out of landfill, particularly organic material, which can then be composted and go back to the earth to enrich the soil with nutrients. Again, if you're interested in nature, I highly recommend giving Starhawk a read and The Earth Path. There's a lot of great information in here. It was a timely read. This quote on page 9 makes the point. The human as blight vision also is self-defeating in organizing around environmental issues. It's hard to get people enthused about a movement that even unconsciously envisions their extinction as a good. As long as we see humans as separate from nature, whether we place ourselves above or below, we will inevitably create false dichotomies and set up human nature oppositions in which everyone loses. I need to write that out for myself because some days it does get immensely frustrating seeing and hearing about all the damage and everything else going on with humans, particularly now that even after a global pandemic, the human population has now exceeded 8 billion. And I say exceeded because, of course, those numbers don't factor in all the people that we have homeless, all the people who may not fill out a census or otherwise be accounted for. And Starhawk is exactly right. We need to consider ourselves as part of nature, as part of the system, and come up with ways to effectively work in unison and harmony to improve things. What I enjoy also about Starhawk is that she is a peaceful activist. She works to be heard, she works to make this a better place for everyone, but she does it in a non-violent way, in unison and combination with a number of other people who work with her. You can learn more about Starhawk by either Googling her name or checking her out here on YouTube. She really is one of my personal role models. I enjoy the way she writes. I enjoy the way she speaks. She's just an incredible person who I've never had an opportunity to meet, but she has definitely inspired how I look at the world, how I interact with nature, and how I make decisions about certain things that I plan to do in my yard. The next book that I read that again wasn't on my to read soon radar is Designed for Growth: 12 Steps for Adult Children. This is by Veronica. It has been sitting on my shelf for probably 20 years, ever so patiently waiting for me to get to it. If you're not familiar with the term adult children, it refers to adult children of alcoholics. And it's based on the 12-step program for those of us who grew up in homes where substance use or abuse was an issue. Too often, people tend to forget it isn't just the individual who is using or abusing the substances that are impacted by that choice. It is the other individuals within the home, it's their coworkers, it's a whole ripple effect out from that individual. This book, like The Earth Path, was also a very timely read. I've been aware of the 12-step programs for well over 30 plus years. As a caseworker, I used to take my clients to AA meetings. I very much support AA and NA programs. I have friends from both programs. There are so many benefits to that, including programs for family members like Al-Anon who are impacted by substance use and abuse of their loved ones. Beating yourself up or constantly rehashing what you did wrong or what didn't work. It's about looking at it, making amends, and then, as it states in this book, let it go. Also appreciating that there are people in your life who may or may not let it go or be willing to move forward. If you have those kinds of people, then you need to let them go because that isn't going to help with your recovery. You need to be very particular about who you choose to keep in your life. You need to do the steps openly and honestly with yourself so that you can move forward What I really enjoy is one day at a time. This isn't about looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. It's about today. So if you're new to this, then it's very important to just get through the next 24 hours without that drink or without drugs. And then you do it again tomorrow and tomorrow. And then you end up being someone like me who's 20 plus years down the road. If you're an adult child of an alcoholic or a drug addict, the Design for Growth 12 Steps for Adult Children is an excellent resource. It's a great read with a lot of helpful tips on how to work the program for yourself. It's filled with a lot of excellent points, examples of other people, and how to work through those 12 steps for your own personal growth and well-being. On the back, it says, a complete guide to understanding and working the 12 steps from an adult child who is living the program. Design for Growth is an essential recovery tool offering step-by-step direction for beginners as well as 12-step renewal for old-timers. That would be me, and not just because I turned 60. Basic information about what it means to be an adult child is offered. Personal stories from adult children relate what life was like before and how finding and living the 12 steps have transformed their lives. I stress the word living because the program isn't you do your 12 weeks, boom, you're done, life is great. The program is living the 12 steps for the rest of your life. That isn't a bad thing. We all need to stop and think about what we're saying, what we're doing, and the choices we make. And that's what the steps are about. Another important point to make here is the term God. Although it's mentioned and it comes up in the Serenity Prayer, certainly the 12-step programs are not affiliated or about any particular religious or spiritual path. In fact, there are atheists who have benefited from the program. So although they use the word God in the Serenity Prayer, and it's described in this book as well, higher power is whatever that means to you. That may be God, that may be goddess, that may be a creative source, it may be the universe. So I really want to stress that the 12-step program is open to everyone of every belief system, and that I definitely support it, although it wasn't the program that did it for me. There are certainly a lot of points that did make a difference for me. So I combined it, as I do with so many other things. If you've seen my 21 rituals to change your life video, you know that I adapt and pull information and have it fit into my life in a way that makes sense for me. So there are a lot of great things about the 12-step programs that I support, I believe in. I encourage people to check it out and see if it works for them, particularly if you're someone who enjoys being in larger groups and that works for you. I tend to prefer smaller groups, but I did enjoy going to the meetings with my clients. Onto the back of the book, thought-provoking suggestions for growth challenge us to personalize the issues for ourselves, helping us move from denial to acceptance of the past and growth in the present. Design for Growth stresses the importance of prayer, meditation, affirmations, and keeping a journal for program enrichment. I am a huge fan and supporter of journaling. I've mentioned it in other videos. I've made videos about it. And journaling can, again, adapt to what works for you. It doesn't have to, in my opinion, be pages and pages and pages. It can be a few jot notes just to record what happened that particular day. The importance of doing that, and it's certainly something that I encourage my clients to do, because when you start journaling, one, it's for your eyes only. So you don't have to worry about spelling, grammar, anything like that. It's just for you. But the beauty of keeping a journal is that you can look back and see the progress that you've made. And it eliminates that whole did I remember that right or not issue. You've got it right there. Whether you do it old school, handwriting, or you do it on technology and save it in a word processing document. Either way, it's helpful and a great way to track your own progress, especially on days when maybe you're facing a challenge or you're feeling a bit down. Then go to your journal and look back on all the great things that have happened since you started this process. A recovering adult and strong program person, Veronica Ray offers her first-hand knowledge in this book for people working their program. Highly recommend Designed for Growth, and I'm very glad that I finally picked this book up and read it. I will definitely be starting to go through and working the steps because there were a lot of great things that came up. What I really enjoy is that I can combine both of these together. So get my creativity flowing with some wonderful ideas. There's a tip in here on journals, and in here, journaling comes up as well. So I'm glad that both of these came up in January. For me, these were great reads in January. It also gives you an idea of how I just end up picking up books. I find I pick up what I need at the time. This month definitely demonstrated it with finding books to keep my mood and my perspective in that hopeful, upbeat place. If you found this video to be of benefit, please be sure to give that like button a little tickle. If you're interested in checking out any of the titles that I've mentioned, let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoy bookish content, nature content, or my silly cats, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you know when I upload content that may be of interest to you. Until next time, be sure to take care of you, and we'll chat soon.